Welcome to another episode of the Sports Sentiment. I am your host, Nick Urias, and we are back once again talking college football. It is the final week of the regular season. San Jose State in action at SEFCU Stadium for the final home game, the final regular season game before we find out who they play in the bowl game to be announced on where the venue and the opponent. But forget about that because we got ourselves another rivalry game. And it's a rivalry that is renewed between San Jose State and Stanford. It's the first time that these two teams play since 2013. This is a rivalry that goes way back. And this is a rivalry that I know a lot of Spartan fans and maybe some Cardinal fans are excited to have back. I know a lot of San Jose State alums from back in the day. My mom was a San Jose State alum, and she's happy that this rivalry is back. So there's a lot of fans that are happy that this game is being played once again, that, both athletic directors, both football programs are saying, hey, let's get this thing back up and running. And, whether it was at Stanford Stadium or formerly known as Spartan Stadium, now SEFCU Stadium, this is a rivalry that goes way back. And I know fans on both sides are excited to see it. And believe it or not, this is going to be the first time that myself and our guest are going to be seeing this rivalry for the first time. So let's just bring on the guest in once again. Broadcaster for 90.5 KSJS on San Jose State Student Radio, does some great stuff riding with the spear for San Jose State, and is going to be on the call this Friday at 1 p.m. Jonathan Canas, we got the call this Friday on Black Friday between San Jose State and Stanford. And like I said, kind of set the stage there between the Spartans and the Cardinal. It's been, since 2013 since these teams have played, and the first time since 2006 where these two teams have played in San Jose.
Yeah, Nick, the Bill Walsh Legacy Game, and I'm excited to be there. And like you said, there's a lot of history to it. The first game since 2013, and the Spartans, long await they can get their long awaited revenge since their last game, since they lost 34-13 against the Stanford Cardinal all the way back then, and now they're kind of found themselves in two different positions here. Obviously, this is the first time the Cardinal are in the ACC, so it's probably one of the big reasons they're scheduled in here with San Jose State. But who cares what the reason is? They're both here, and we were all lucky enough, at least if you're in the Bay Area, I guess even nationwide, if you want to say, to see another Bay Area rivalry with Cal and Stanford just last week. And right now we're kind of get another little taste of this right after Thanksgiving. So we can't be eating too much, on Thanksgiving Day, because at 1 p.m. we
Right.
got to be straight at SFQ. So I'm excited for it, man. And just the Bay Area attention. And, I was watching some of the Cal game, and it was very it was packed over there, especially, considering I guess you can say the recent success, quote unquote, for the Stanford Cardinal after their win over the number 22 Louisville as well. So there was probably a lot of hype going into it. Obviously, Cal had the bowl eligibility on the line as well, but it was a packed turnout, and I'm expecting over here it's perfect that it's at SEFCU. Thankfully for San Jose State, I'm expecting a crazy turnout on both sides for the Stanford Cardinal and for SJSU fans to show out. Going to be a bunch of blue and red out there, Nick.
Oh, yeah. I'll tell you this much. I think this is going to be a good crowd on Friday. I really hope it is because this is a standalone game. It's on CBS. This isn't on CBS Sports Network. This is on the CBS, channel 5 on cable TV. This
Yeah.
is going to be a national TV game. Everybody will get this. So I'm hoping a good turnout. I mean, San Jose State hasn't had a game on the premier CBS channel since last year versus Oregon State. So this is a big time game. We've kind of said that. I mean, just from a rivalry element and just kind of a regionality perspective, we want these two teams playing each other. I don't care what conference they're in, which, by the way, Jonathan, I still think it's just so silly to say that Stanford's in the ACC. To this day, it just still is mind-boggling. And I always got you some weird stats for you. First time ever an ACC opponent comes to San Jose.
Wow, that's crazy. Okay, and it's the Stanford Cardinal. That's kind of whack, but all right,
Yeah,
so be it. That's how it has to be. And Cardinal coming off the 127th big game, the first game, you could say it's the first big game in ACC if you want to, if you want to be extra with it too, which is
sure.
kind of crazy. So yeah, a lot of different elements, but it doesn't matter, like you said, as long as the rivalry and the game itself is back here, I think it just brings a lot of fans out here to SEFCU and to San Jose. And if they ever decide to do it, obviously in Palo Alto as well, SJSU fans will show out. So something that both of these schools, I think, desperately needed. And right now, going into it, they're kind of on a, I know Stanford Cardinal kind of struggled in the middle of the season, but now they're both kind of like on the same, I would say almost the same level going into this, heading into this matchup right now. Stanford Cardinal kind of got on a heater for their standards after
Yeah.
the win over Louisville, and then keeping up with Cal because they just weren't competitive for a while. And SJSU obviously, kind of just desperately wanting any other type of win now that conference play is done, Nick.
Yeah, San Jose State 6-4 overall. They're bowl eligible. They clinched that in the road win versus Oregon State 3 weeks ago. 3-4 in Mountain West play. They're coming off a tough game versus number 24 UNLV. I mean, they lost that game by 11 or yeah, 11, 27-16 loss. I mean, if you would have told me in that game, and let's get into that game right now, because if you would have told me in that game, Jonathan, that I was going to get a pick six from Isaiah Rivas, San Jose State DB, and I was going to get a safety in that one as well, I would have said Spartans are going to win this game.
Yeah, but Mother Nature, I don't think agreed with you. She had other plans on that one.
Yeah.
SJSU, for some reason, just couldn't get past it. They let UNLV get comfortable in the ugly weather out there and kind of play their own game. And obviously, two different offenses between between those two heavyweights, and a lot of factors were at play here. But eventually, when the rain started pouring down, one of the teams adjusted, and one of the teams didn't. And San Jose State, unfortunately, was on the ladder. They didn't really adjust to the standards of it, and they kind of kept slinging it to their standards. We know how they are, Nick. We've been covering a bunch of their games, and they stuck to their game. And unfortunately for them, it didn't pay off, and it didn't end up being competitive within towards the end of the game because UNLV had so much control just on the ground, and then you can even say to an extent on the air with Haj Malik looking pretty comfortable, but obviously he can run the ball too, and that's what they were doing with him. They just couldn't pick what he was doing next, and they're obviously going to be another kind of situation like that with Ashton Daniels, but I don't think he's nearly the talent that Haj Malik was. So that was just a tough game, I think, just with the talent itself on UNLV, what they're playing for, and for San Jose State, man, the weather just came down for them, and they've just been on a, after the Boise game, maybe their heads were kind of down, and they weren't expecting it, and they got a little bit humbled in that UNLV game, in my opinion.
So I asked Spartan linebacker Jordan Cobbs, who's been on the team since 2019. I just straight up asked him this week, is this the worst weather game you've played in San Jose? And he said, yeah. Like
Wow.
that is low. Like that's coming from a guy that's, he's played in some crappy road games, cold, but maybe like not, wet and
Sure,
muggy,
yeah.
just on a full on downpour. In San Jose, I mean, and you just gotta love how the weather worked out. Like the football gods were just not with them. Like it's
No
nice and
way.
sunny right now in San Jose, and then the one Friday primetime standalone game they get is the game where it's just an absolute downpour. So that was unfortunate, and it is what it is. But hey, you mentioned it. Like San Jose State just kept airing out the ball. I mean, they had 22 pass attempts in this game. Walker Egan wasn't great, wasn't good. 4 for 22, only 81 yards and a touchdown. That touchdown to Matthew Coleman. Nick Nash was held in check in this game. You got to think the weather elements have to do something to do with it, but give credit to UNLV's defense. I think that's the best defense you'll play all year. With that line of scrimmage battled clearly on the UNLV Rebel side. And then, just not much time. The weather elements. Nick Nash only had one catch in this game. Like that is unbelievable. So, hey, tip your cap to UNLV. Justin Lockhart did go down in the game, which obviously changes a whole lot of things schematically on the Rebels side defensively, where they could just overload on Nash. Lockhart did not return in the game. However, he has practiced the past 2 days. So that is a good sign. Coach Ken says he's most likely going to go. So big plus for the Spartan air raid attack. And all signs are pointing towards the weather being nice and sunny. No rain in the forecast this Friday, which is definitely a plus for the air raid, Jonathan.
Yeah, I mean, I would hope so. Just for both of these teams' sake, I don't think Stanford would perform too well in the rain either. So hopefully for both of these teams, the weather doesn't play a factor. And it's gonna be 1 p.m. man, Black Friday. Sun's gonna be out, students are gonna be out. So I'm expecting it to be a little bit crazy. And both of these teams to show out, obviously, in a big way. And both of these teams with two different elements to their play style, just like UNLV and SJ yet again, except this time we won't see the weather kind of play a factor, if you want to call it an excuse, which I won't. They lost the game, just
Sure, of
downright simple.
course. Yeah, I think they got outplayed in that one. I mean,
Yeah.
Jaden Thomas had over 100 yards on the ground. I mean, Haj Malik did some stuff with his arm, but I thought he was going to do a little bit more with his legs as well. But if they're going to just keep running the same old play to Jaden Thomas and the defense ain't going to stop it, then why run anything else? Ricky White was incredible in that game. He had that crazy catch on third down in like the fourth quarter it was when UNLV really put that insurance drive together. It was like, man, like that is an NFL type play. Ricky White will be playing on Sundays for UNLV wide receiver. He'll be playing on Sundays next year. Talented player there. But you talked about it, the crowd here. I hate to tell you, Jonathan, the kids and the students won't be at this game. Like they're
Oh, you think they're
already
just on break? They're done?
yeah, they're on. It's Thanksgiving break, man. Like they're going back home. They got a week off. They've been home, and I don't think they're going to be coming home for a Friday game. So I think you'll still have a good crowd, but I would expect that student section to not be as packed as that Boise State game. That's for sure. But Stanford, let's talk about them a little bit because this is a 3-win team on the season. I mean, 3-8, 2-6 overall. It's been a tough year too, once again for Troy Taylor. I mean, the move to the ACC doesn't help this football program because when you're dealing with teams like Miami and SMU and Clemson and traveling across the country, which doesn't do any good for a team like Stanford. Yeah, the other teams still have to come, across the country the other way to the West Coast, but still, I mean, that's not good when you're making 3 trips across the country in the span of 12 weeks. So Stanford, I mean, that doesn't do them any favors. But you talked about the Louisville win. Their other 2 wins are at Syracuse, which they kind of really they dominated the game. Don't get me wrong, but man, that was a game heading into it where I was like, wow, are they really going to win this? They won on a game-winning field goal, and then they beat Cal Poly, the FCS team. We actually got a quick scouting report on this team in week 1 when they played TCU. You and I actually both went to Stanford in Palo
Yeah.
Alto to watch the Cardinal take action versus TCU. They lost that game by 7. Versus, I'll tell you what, a very similar team, TCU and San Jose State, like the air raid. I mean, this is a passing attack for TCU that I bet you Stanford's going to go look back at that tape from week 1 and say, hey, we can use some things here for San Jose State because those two teams love to throw the ball. I mean, they got torched in that game. TCU did. I mean, I'd like to hear your analysis on this, but it just seemed like in that week 1 game between the Cardinal and the Horned Frogs for Stanford, it's like they had to go on that like 5 to 8 minute drives, and then TCU would just come back and score 2 minutes later on an easy touchdown drive. Your thoughts on that one? Because I've seen some things schematically that the Horned Frogs and the Spartans, you know, air raid, very similar.
Yeah, and they kind of struggled as well, like containing Ashton Daniels. You had like I want to say like around 90 yards or something in that game as well on the ground. Io Manor as well was reintroduced himself into the season. He had like over 90 yards on the air as well. So a lot of things played in factor. And I'm glad that you mentioned the fact that Stanford were kind of playing or were trying to figure out their brand of football, with taking out 8 minutes or whatever off the clock because, I've been preaching it, whether it's on 90.5 or on your podcast, at the time of possession battle with SJSU. Stanford, another tough battle for SJSU. These guys are top 3. They're not top in anything in the ACC, Nick. I promise you that. They're at the bottom of the barrel. But time of possession, for some reason, they're in the top 3 over here in the ACC, always on the field trying to play their brand of football. And when you're a team like Stanford, that's kind of what you have to do to start to keep up with some of these teams when it was getting not so competitive. So in that game with TCU, I was impressed by what I saw from Stanford. They somewhat kept it competitive, and just to go off from that week 1, I mean they ended up going like 2-1. I know the Cal Poly game was, I mean you don't really count it too much, obviously, just a scrimmage game, but to go up against Kyle McCord and making Kyle McCord really look like like he was really struggling against that defense. Yeah, all of a sudden they were looking a little elite before the rest of the season started. But Stanford wasn't too bad to start off these first 3 games. Kind of similar to an SJSU start. SJSU, started off 3-0, but Stanford started off 2-1, and I thought it was going to keep kind of going good for them. But These guys faced four ranked teams this year and had like one of the top 15 hardest schedules in the country with a team that's like still trying to figure it out. So I'm not trying to make excuses for them, but there was a whole lot of blame within that like 6 game losing streak for everybody on that team. But that hot start was kind of a good sign of things to come. And now it's kind of funny towards the end of the season. They're kind of starting to find their footing yet again. And I expect them to kind of go toe and toe with SJSU. I would imagine you do too, but I'm only saying that because the tail end of the season. But it's just, I find it kind of funny how they started off hot, it was just completely non existent. And now they're slowly coming back with the final game coming up for both of these teams in the Bay Area.
Yeah, well, the stretch the past 2 weeks was not great for the Spartans. I mean, don't get me
Yeah.
wrong. You'd rather play Boise State and UNLV at home, but those were some games, man. You asked Coach Ken, you asked Coach Craig Stutzman. They said, "Man, we had those. Like we were in it. It's not like we just got,
Yeah.
drilled from start to finish. Like there was a couple drives here, a few mistakes, defensively there. I think for San Jose State in this game, I think they're going to have success versus first Stanford's pass defense because it's not good. It's the worst in the ACC, by the way. Like they're not good. They're like middle of the pack in, rushing defense, but we already know Sparty's not going to run the ball.
Yeah. Doesn't matter.
And yeah, exactly. So to me, this is going to come down to first and foremost, I think Nick Nash is going to have a bounce back game. I don't think there's any doubt about it. I mean, Eric
More than one
McAllister,
reception.
yeah, after one reception, he's going to get double digit receptions again. And like I said to the TCU game, I mean Beck and the wide receiver for TCU, Beck, McAllister, like those guys just torched them. So I expect Nash to do the same. To me, I think if you can get a healthy, I mean, I'm not sure if he's gonna be 100%, but if you could get Justin Lockhart to play in this game and he's effective, I think I think San Jose State's going to be very successful in this one offensively. Defensively, I think, San Jose State, it's another mobile quarterback. Like Ashton Daniels is good. Like let's not sugarcoat it. Like this is a good quarterback that's going to be coming in here. I think he is going to do some things on the ground. And I think, if there's a fourth down situation here and it's on the plus side of the 50, I'm telling you right now, Stanford will go for it. Even if it's like a 4th and 3, they will go for it. And they're going to just run it straight with Daniels, like designed run and all. And unless San Jose State has an opportunity to stop it, they're going to keep doing that. So if Ashton Daniels is successful with his feet in this game, I think Stanford's going to put up some points as well. But I do think San Jose State, I think they'll go toe to toe, both these teams, for a little while. And I think San Jose State will get that insurance score that they need. And then whether they punch it up 3 and they punch it in for a touchdown, and in the final couple minutes in the fourth quarter, I kind of see the game script going that way. But I think both teams will be successful. What I'm looking for mainly in this game for San Jose State, a disciplined team, because the past 2 weeks they've had, and I could even go back 3 weeks maybe to that Oregon State game where they just take some not so great penalties. I mean, the Sawane Toia had one, very questionable, but he had one on the third down trying to get off the field versus Boise State, and they called roughing the passer for slamming down
I'll never forget it.
Maddox Matson. I mean, there was a roughing the kicker on DJ Harvey, right? Like on special teams. Special teams hasn't been great for San Jose State. Coach Ken's preached that all year, but you can't have those penalties where you have the third down. You make the third down stop. You have the opposition punting on fourth down. Like you just have to, just stay disciplined. Whether, just there's so many different plays and, small little elements, to that where, San Jose State has just, if they make the play, get off the field, no need to showboat, no need to do any of that. And, they just got to be a little bit more disciplined in those areas. So I want to see that from them to close out the season. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, this is a successful year one for Coach Ken. And the fact that Nick Nash is a Bolitnikoff finalist to go along with it. Like, who is it? Like, Travis Hunter and Tetaroa McMillan from Arizona. Like, he is in some great company. He deserves all the recognition. We've talked about him on this podcast all year and how good he's been. So, glad for Nick Nash that he's doing that. But Man, this is if you can, I'll tell you what, if you could get a Stanford win at home, and we'll see what happens here with the bowl game and how the transfer portal works out. Our dude's gonna hit the transfer portal and it's gonna be an all-out mess here. For the bowl game, and San Jose State's playing a bunch of backups, but it would be nice to get a bowl win versus whoever you play and wherever the game is, because San Jose State hasn't had that. They didn't do that at all during the Brent Brennan era. And I'll tell you what, if they could get two more wins on the season, I think you'll have a lot of San Jose State fans like, wow, year one with Coach Ken, way above our expectations here. And I know you let the ranked games, somewhat slip away, but if you would have said 7 wins, 7 regular season wins plus a bowl win, I would have said like, wow, what a year Coach Ken had in San Jose for his first year.
Yeah, and Coach Ken, to his credit, coming in here in his first year, would have if he gets 7 wins. I mean, he would have as much as Brendan did on his way out already last year. And just call me crazy, but I think the type of guy Coach Ken is, that Odom is and Stutz and the chemistry they've developed in that locker room, I think some of those guys will want to play in that bowl game, just for them and just this type of year they had, this legendary year that they all know that they've had for San Jose State. I mean, those back to back ranked games were like the first time they ever played ranked games back to back in San Jose State history. So I think they both came in here with high expectations of themselves, knowing who Coach Stutz and Coach Ken are, and this maybe the San Jose State fan base came in with low expectations because it's a new regime, and they just kind of blew it out the water. But I'm with you, Nick. They can get this win if they can get this win with Stanford, and obviously get a win in bowl game. If I'm not mistaken, I think Ken has as many bowl game wins as SJSU does bowl games itself. So this guy just lives and breathes winning and winning at the highest, the highest type of a level. And if he can get past Stanford here, which I know he wants to, in the Bill Walsh Legacy Game, the first of his own era as the first head coach, they're lucky enough to be in it too. So a lot of implications on the line for both of these teams. And I like what you said about the discipline part as well for SJSU. They have to learn to be disciplined, and I think so does Stanford as well. They draw a lot of penalties themselves throughout the year. They're also like top 2 or top 3, and then the ACC for drawing a bunch of penalties. So both of these teams going to have to stay disciplined, especially when Stanford keeps going for it on fourth down or something. They have 36. They've done that 36 times this year.
Yeah, I was gonna say Troy.
That's crazy, man.
Troy Taylor is very aggressive, man.
He has no
Very
choice.
aggressive. Like he will go for it at his own 30 if it's a 4th and 1.
Brandon Staley.
Yeah. Brandon Staley. Yeah. We all know Brandon Staley. How do you feel about the matchup between the stud wide receiver Alec Iomanner? Like this guy, he'll be in the NFL next year.
Definitely.
He's definitely an NFL receiver that the Spartans are gonna be going up against. How do you feel about that matchup one-on-one wise? Because he was pretty well contained versus Cal, and like Mosley the fifth kind of hurt him a little bit with 6 receptions. I mean, Stanford's not going to throw the ball all that much here with their passing yards. They're definitely more of a run first team there with Daniels. They'll try to let Daniels establish the ground game himself and then try to open things up. But how do you feel about Iomanner here? Because this is a guy that is more than capable of torching some good defenses. I mean, his statement game, really his big time game last year was when he had like what 260 receiving yards and 4
Something
touchdowns
like
versus Colorado. And I know the Spartan fans. I talked to Cobbs this week. He's like, man, I remember watching that game when we were on the road.
So do I, man.
Yeah. So like,
I don't know
remember
why
it was
I was
a prime
watching that
time
game,
game.
but I remember it so vividly. I was like,
Yeah.
wow, this guy's. It kind of seemed like he was getting the ball like at every touch, and when people turn on Stanford or just are watching Stanford football, they're always just kind of looking out for Iomanner, and he's so huge, man. To his credit, on top of having like big hands, he's a well built guy. But just to answer your question, I mean, for Iomanner going into this game, he's had over in 3 games at least over 100 yards. He didn't have, I think, obviously as much as a good year as he did last year, and maybe in part, or it's definitely in part, is to the quarterback situation Stanford has had. They use 3 different quarterbacks all year as well. It's not like they've had a consistency as well with Daniels. They've tinkered with that position as well, and that's obviously affected some of these receivers like Iomanner and like Mosley. So Iomanner, I think, though, not only is he going to have to go just develop that chemistry again with Daniels, but I think he's going to go up against, a top 10 corner now in DJ Harvey, ranked 8th. So that's crazy, just the fact that San Jose State has that. And you mentioned Isaiah Rivas getting a pick six. So not only you're going up against one of the literal best corners in the country in DJ Harvey, and you might try to switch him off, but on the other side you can have Isaiah Rivas, who just the corners in general within this lineup, and Dansby, who are like, man, we've seen it. They're full of like confidence, man, and that's what you need for that position. And Rocket Rahimi, he has one of the most interceptions in the Mountain West. This secondary is for Mountain West standards, one of the most elite back here. You don't have a chance to see it because of their schedule and who they played this year. And it's just been like just so devastating for them to not like really see it on paper. But when you're watching the games and you're watching who they're covering, those guys have earned those, like DJ Harvey has earned that accolade for a reason. So I think Iomanner in this game might struggle a little bit, and Mosley, I think, is one of those guys again can kind of scare you. You mentioned Lockhart, and Mosley, the true freshman, man, can all of a sudden the last two games can really hurt you if you're the Spartans. And I love Iomanner and his whole game, but this true freshman all of a sudden has kind of exploded onto the scene, kind of like Iomanner, except he's a little younger. And we'll get to see what he's made of in this last game, because they're not bowl eligible, so they want to show
Nope.
out in their last game. You know what I mean?
Most definitely. And I will say this too. You talked up the defense and the secondary that's been pretty good this year. Coach Derek Odom, defensive coordinator for San Jose State, nominated for the Broyles Award, which an award that goes to one of to the best assistant coach in college football. He's
Wow.
nominated for that award. That was announced this morning. So Coach Derek Odom, I mean, could give him the game ball in a lot of different games this year. The Air Force matchup, the Oregon State win in Corvallis. We'll see what he can do here against a Stanford team like that we said that's only got 3 wins on the season's played themselves a gauntlet ACC schedule, but more than capable of putting up some points and giving up some points as well. So I think the matchup favors San Jose State, to kind of do what they want, but Stanford's also going to be able to do some things as well. So should be a fun matchup overall. Jonathan, before we close out the podcast, I know you've been on it quite a bit here. You were on the Mountain West Hoops preview that is now available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. You've been on several San Jose State content as well here on the Sports Sentiment. So where can people find your work? I know you'll be on the call with myself, you and I on Friday afternoon. But where can people find your work outside of the stuff you're doing behind the mic?
Outside of behind the mic, obviously, as you know, midday tug, we got Sports Weekly on 90.5 from basically 10 to 1 and then 1 to 2. Check out the Spear if you got time. An editor on staff for the Spear covering all things sports. We'll have staff there, like we do every game, covering the Stanford game as well as basketball going into winter. That's the Spear, sjsu.com. And for my Instagram, it's just Mr. J with 3 Ys at the end, just stealing Joker's logo, basically. And I get more active on Twitter basically one day, but just my first and last name, Jonathan Canas and underscore. Just posting up some articles on there, with other games that we're covering over here at SJSU. Appreciate that. And Nick, last game over here at SEFQ, man, I'm juiced for it, and I really can't wait for Friday. Can't wait, just right after basically a holiday too, just getting straight into it, and I'm excited for it. 1 p.m. Like I didn't care what time it was. It's gonna be 1 p.m. or 7 p.m. I'm excited for this game, new rivalry game, and I'm just lucky to be a part of it with you again. Let's do it.
Most definitely should be a fun one this Friday, 1 p.m. San Jose State versus Stanford, senior day as well. So you'll have Nick Nash, Jordan Cobbs, a bunch of 12 other seniors to go along with those two household names that have been on the Spartan roster since 2019. That will be recognized pregame at SEFQ Stadium. So should be a fun one. Jonathan Canas, thanks for coming on the podcast once again. We'll be catching up obviously this Friday, but yeah, should be a good one. Thanks for coming on. Once again, I am your host, Nick Urias, available on youtube.com, the Sports Sentiment, and wherever you get your podcasts. Signing off for this week.